capsules, or small bottles, with strange contents. I really have to discuss this subject first, among all the other requested topics, because this is very important to all Yamashita treasure hunters out there, especially the amateurs. This is all about capsules, or containers, that are similar to those that can be found in chemical laboratories. If it happens that you uncovered such kind of small glass bottles, you need to start to make some changes to your digging strategy. It's because these bottles acts as a marker, indicating a warning sign about danger. Basing it on my own personal experience as a treasure hunter, I already came across many different types of bottles that contain strange contents inside them. The most common glass containers are those with capsule shapes, and small bottles used for medicinal purposes, as shown here on the illustration. I had also seen circle glass shape containers that were very fragile. In most cases, you will uncover glass containers with two different types of contents. One of the content is in the form of liquid. Into the eyes of many, anyone can describe it as similar to water. However, this liquid is not water, but a certain form of acid. The other content is a certain form of powder, similar to a baking soda. In one of our past projects, we encountered many small bottle containers, similar to this illustration here. We were working on a sealed tunnel, when we uncovered them, at a distance of 10 feet from the entrance. They were scattered and mixed on the soil, making it hard for our diggers to use their tools. Thus, they had to proceed with extreme caution, that at some point, they even had to use their hands with their thick gloves to dig. These small bottles either contained white fine powder, or liquid. Accidentally, one of our digger stepped on one small bottle that contained liquid. At that moment, the liquid emitted a very strong scent, that even I from a far distance had smelled it. The smell was similar to a plastic that is being burned. Anyway, we were completely safe because the danger will only happen when the powder mixes with the liquid. Once they got mixed together, the product is an invisible fume that when inhaled, you already know what's going to happen to you. Aside from the small bottles, were those bottles that had spherical bodies with pointed tips, similar to this one here on our illustration. We encountered these types of bottles on another, separate project that we operated in the past. Just like the small bottles, each of the bottle either consists of liquid or powder content. However, what makes them different was that these bottles were so fragile, where it was a lot easier to break. The thickness of these bottles was so thin, which is similar to the thickness of a light bulb. Since these bottles were so attractive, I brought two of them at home for display. One contained the powder, while the other one contained liquid. Tragically, they got broken by my poor curious cat by accident. At this point, I will just leave to your imagination about what happened to my own cat. Thus, the lesson learned here is that you should never bring these kinds of bottles at home. Perhaps the most popular type of bottle is the capsule shape type. Unlike the two previous bottles that I described, capsules are a lot different. It's because capsules are divided into two chambers. One side contains the powder, while the other side contains the liquid. Thus, there will be no escape when one of these capsules got accidentally broken. How can you safely handle these bottles? I have to say that digging is a very important skill for every treasure hunters. Our diggers are too experienced that they developed the skill on how to properly handle their digging tools. They can properly apply the right amount of pressure, good enough not to damage any of the bottles, when they strike it on the surface of the ground. This is a skill that can never be taught, but can only be acquired through a lot of digging experiences. You may not even believe this, that most of our diggers are capable of feeling presence of certain objects buried at shallow depths. Anyway, I will try to discuss more about this topic on a separate video. If you do not have the skill comparable to our diggers, then it's best to stay on the safe side by wearing your gas mask. The moment that you uncover such bottle containers, wear your gas mask because you will encounter more of them randomly on different layers of the ground as you proceed down further. You have to know that when you are already several feet depth down the ground, the circulation of oxygen at that depth is very poor unless you are using a blower. So if it happens that at such great depth, you have suddenly encountered these kinds of bottles, then you cannot afford to commit even the slightest mistake of breaking one of them. Thus, it is always best to have your gas mask on the moment that you came across with these bottles. Moreover, if you can read Yamashita treasure signs, or markers, especially danger signs, then you will already know what to expect, allowing you to make the necessary preparations before you continue with your diggings. You have to know that the Japanese Imperial Army always left valuable clues as warning signs. Did you enjoy watching my video? If yes, and if you are new to my channel, then you may want to subscribe, like this video, and hit the small notification bell icon. By subscribing and hitting the bell icon, you will receive alerts or notifications about my new published videos. If you want a reading material about treasure hunting, then you may want to visit my blogging website at treasurehunt.club. Thank you very much for watching, and happy treasure hunting.